I'm Shannon Watkins, and I am here today with Professor Sarah Treul. Professor Treul is an associate professor in political science at UNC-Chapel Hill. She specializes in American political institutions with an emphasis on the U.S. Congress and courts. She is also the faculty director of UNC's program for Public Discourse. The UNC program for Public Discourse is a program housed in the College of Arts and Sciences that includes faculty from across the university. Its mission is to support a strong culture of debate and deliberation at UNC through curricular and extracurricular programs. Among other core beliefs, the program is committed to the idea that the proper functioning of the university requires a commitment to open, frank, respectful, and productive debate. Sarah, thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so to get started, could you provide a brief history of the program for Public Discourse? When was it established, and what was the rationale for founding the program? And how does it contribute to the mission of higher education, particularly a liberal arts education?
Absolutely, sure, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. The program started in 2019, so just last year, and really came about as the result of the College of Arts and Sciences' new Ideas in Action general education curriculum, which is slated to begin next fall. One ambition of this new curriculum is to recenter the liberal arts education on objectives that extend beyond a focus on just careers and jobs. The pedagogical approach of the new curriculum is really to prepare students to be effective, successful thinkers, and also citizens by developing flexible, what we call capacities, that cross disciplines and also domains of knowledge. The combination of this new curriculum and also a broader recognition by many faculty on campus that our students desire a framework for conversation and deliberation led to the development of the program. Through its emphasis on incorporating structured deliberation in the classroom, and also by showcasing debate and respect for alternative viewpoints and opinions in our public events, the program for Public Discourse will give students the necessary skills to engage with the most pressing questions facing society. And oftentimes these pressing questions are, of course, controversial, which is where giving them a framework for deliberation becomes so important. So to this end, the main objectives of our program are really to support the implementation of pedagogical methods that do increase our students' engagement and their critical thinking skills, and also probably more importantly, to foster that civil deliberation and therefore increase civic engagement. So we're really seeking to encourage our students to engage with disagreements, recognizing that they're going to exist, and also engage with those disagreements across a full range of issues that arise in the university and the broader society. This is not just a program in one department or on one topic. It really is a cross-disciplinary initiative. You also asked about how this program contributes specifically to a liberal arts education. And I believe this program is really at the core and at the center of a liberal arts education. As our mission really is to build, like I said, our students' ability and their desire to debate and deliberate, which will enable them to be better citizens, civic leaders, and stewards of our democracy. And when we think about a liberal arts education, we're trying to develop these well-rounded students. And since our program is really focused on that, our goal really is that we don't want to just prepare students to make a living, to have a job, to even have a career, but we want them to be contributors to public life. And that's really the underlying mission that coincides so nicely with the goals of a liberal arts education.
Great, thank you. So now that the program is up and running, tell us about its activities. How do students and faculty members get involved, and what kind of activities does the program host?
Yeah, there's a lot of activities. So this question I could probably go on and on about. So I'll try to come back to some of it a little bit later as well. But as I already said, our vision is really to support the strong culture of debate and deliberation here at UNC through both our public programming and big events, but also curricular work in the college itself and other student-centered initiatives. So I'll start by talking a little bit about our public events, because that's probably what most of the audience watching this is the most familiar with so far, and hopefully people have had a chance to attend a couple events already. But our events are really intended to model this constructive public discourse. And I think this word constructive is really important here, so I want to kind of build on it a little bit. Because by constructive, we don't mean a dialogue where everybody necessarily reaches consensus or agreement at the end. Rather, we mean a dialogue and a conversation which participants are able to share their reasoning about important and contentious issues and have their ideas challenged by people who might think differently. This is incredibly important to our mission. This kind of dialogue requires a number of skills. It requires the courage to disagree with others, the ability to listen carefully to different perspectives, and the ability to explain one's own position thoughtfully and also carefully. We often worry that the American citizens don't have, or we as American citizens, I should say, don't have many opportunities to develop these skills because we're hesitant to talk about contentious issues. We're especially hesitant to talk about those contentious issues when we know someone disagrees with us. And political debates that we see on television or wherever else often end up relying mostly on partisan talking points. And that's not what we're here to do. We really want to ensure that all UNC students are able to support their positions, whatever they may be, with facts and talk about the values that underpin those positions. So we plan to have several events every semester that are open to the public and, of course, trying to increase the number of students that attend these events, in which leading scholars, public intellectuals, and practitioners discuss important issues. This can be an issue like free speech, which is actually the next event that we have coming up, or it could be an event which we held this summer, which was on the government's response to COVID-19. And all these issues are going to bring in people that have a variety of different perspectives on the main theme that we're talking about. So essentially, we're committed to ensuring that both liberal and conservative voices are part of these conversations. The world and our debate and our deliberation and our democracy are better when we hear from different sides. We believe that good arguments can, at least in some cases, also change minds. And so we anticipate that the people who attend our events may end up reconsidering some of their cherished beliefs or things that they thought they held near and dear, but didn't really have the reasoning behind why they had those beliefs. In other cases, however, exposure to dissenting voices may encourage audience members to make better arguments in defense of their own beliefs that they've held onto maybe for a long time. Both of these things can improve the quality of public discourse and will lead to a more informed civic engagement. We also hope that our events will highlight the fact that people who adhere to different ideologies may also share some areas of agreement, and that it's often possible to collaborate with people that we disagree with. So, of course, I should say that no single event is going to change American public discourse, but we hope that our events will help students see the benefits of deliberative and communicative skills, and those are the ones that we're trying to encourage in our student body. So that's really the event side. And then if we move over to the curriculum side, which is not just curricular, it's also other activities that we're sort of sponsoring on campus that have a student focus. And so while, of course, it's important to expose our students to a variety of perspectives through our public events, such as the George and West event that I hope to talk about here in a little bit, it's also equally vital that we provide students the necessary skill set to communicate their own perspectives effectively. Thus, our curricular component is designed to empower students with deliberative competence. So like any craft, the art of rhetoric requires constant cultivation. Students need to consistently practice public discourse to learn what works and what does not, and to sharpen their skills and apply them to new situations, including situations that we can't yet predict. And so our program is really focused on the belief that this robust deliberation is a precondition to democratic culture. And thus, by only teaching our students how to engage in this deliberative practice, do we prepare our students to be active civic agents and ensure the continuation in many ways of American democracy. So our view that democracy requires a commitment to democratic citizenship, and that democratic citizenship is practiced largely, if maybe not primarily, through public deliberation. Some people would call this rhetorical citizenship. By engaging in public debate, our students begin to embody one of their most important duties as democratic citizens. And so while this diversity of opinion is important for a democracy and a college campus in particular, the need doesn't stop there, right? Our students also have to learn how to identify the modes of reasoning that inform their viewpoints and the viewpoints of their opponents, in an effort to evaluate their own positions and also construct more compelling arguments in the future. And so all that being said, public communication is not an end of itself. So in fact, public communication often exposes how deep some of our differences really are. Thus, again, only by learning how to communicate more effectively can we begin to face the challenges and disagreements we share as a public. So to this end, our executive director, who came on board this summer, Kevin Marinelli, offers workshops for our faculty who want to learn some of these methods and incorporate them into their own classrooms. And then outside of the classroom, but still here on UNC's campus, we've also created other innovative ways for our students to practice public deliberation. We've created a fellows program where students in the program will learn the craft of rhetorical writing by producing a periodical. We are also in the beginning stages of launching several other initiatives, including reading groups where we'll focus on one book and our executive director will lead the students through a discussion of that book. A program we're also calling Speak Easy, which we envision as a collaborative space for reflection and inquiry, and also a speech competition where students can sort of practice some of the rhetorical skills on a contentious topic of the day. And so all of these events, not just the speech competition, but all of them will tackle these contentious issues. But the goal is, again, to provide our students with the skills to tackle them in a way that is thoughtful, where participants are able to share their reasoning about important and contentious issues and have those ideas intelligently challenged by their peers or by people in general who might think differently than them.
That's wonderful. That all sounds fantastic. Are the public events well attended? What kind of feedback have participants provided?
Yeah, this is a great question and something I'm actually pretty excited to talk about. Last year, the program, in its inaugural year, we held 3 events and each drew around 100 people. Our event on impeachment in the fall was probably the best attended, advertised to a wide public. People came from outside of campus to attend that event, but around 100 people were attending the events. This year, we've already hosted 2 remote events. One was in July on COVID-19, which focused on the economic impact, civil liberties, and also public health. And we've also hosted an event here just a couple weeks ago, a conversation with Professors Robert George and Cornel West on how to foster dialogue and friendships across the aisle. And this was moderated by Thomas Chatterton Williams. I'm really proud of the transition that we've made as a program to remote and virtual events. This is a challenge for everyone, and I think we've done a really great job. So both of these 2 remote events that I just mentioned have drawn nearly 500 attendees, and we've had close to 800 registrants for these events. So we're taking advantage of the fact that in the virtual environment, we hope to reach even more people. People can tune in from everywhere. You don't have to be physically in Chapel Hill now to attend our events. We're also recording the events, and this makes them available afterwards. And so we think it's not only useful for reaching a broader audience to record them, but also has the advantage of allowing our events to be used in the future. And my hope would be that I could pinpoint particular faculty who might have an interest in an event, or an event might fit their class particularly well. And so reaching out to them to say, would you like to use maybe not the whole event, but a clip of the event in your class? In fact, with our next event coming up here in October, so not too long away, which is an event called Free Speech on Campus, we are literally bringing the speakers into virtual classrooms. So in addition to the public event, the large scale one, where again, I'm shooting for 500 attendees if we can, we're also gonna have the 3 different speakers speak individually to classrooms or to other small groups on days following the event. So the ideal hope is people can watch the public event and then have a more personal and intimate conversation, hopefully utilizing some of those deliberative skills that we're practicing and engaging in these smaller group settings. So I think we're doing our best to take advantage of the virtual environment, and I'm kind of excited about what we're seeing as a result of that so far. Along those same lines, you asked about feedback, and I think the feedback for our events has been overwhelmingly positive, which I think speaks again to this underlying need for a program like this. I mean, there's plenty of people who have commented and watched our events and said, this is so wonderful. This is exactly what American democracy needs. It's exactly what our political conversations need. And so I think we're fulfilling that need, and also there's a lot riding on our shoulders, and there's a lot of hope for this program, and I certainly hope to fulfill that hope.
That's wonderful. That just sounds fantastic. As you just mentioned, this fall semester, the program hosted a conversation between 2 professors, Robert P. George and Cornel West. The 2 disagree a great deal on politics, but are nevertheless able to have fruitful discussions and are really good friends. Could you speak a bit about how modeling civil discourse is valuable for students?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've touched on this a little bit already, but as you said, our events are intended to model this constructive civil discourse. And I see this being valuable for our students in two very interrelated ways. The first is simple exposure. We want to expose our students to a variety of perspectives through our public events. We want to amplify perspectives that often do not get a lot of attention at UNC. For example, George and West both spoke of the role of faith in shaping their own political commitments. Our students, and it's really the public more broadly, are often hesitant to talk about contentious issues with people they know that disagree with them. So by exposing our students to prominent speakers and public intellectuals who hold different and sometimes divergent viewpoints, and that demonstrate that they can have and carry on a civil dialogue, we're really showcasing how civil discourse can lead to a more informed civil engagement. And I think this is important. I already touched on this above, but we don't always see this in our media, in our public and political discourse when it comes to debates or something like that. So it really is a breath of fresh air, I think, for a lot of our students to step back and say, oh, this can be done, right? We can do this in a civil way. And this, seeing it, makes me actually want to engage and actually want to participate. So that's certainly an important part, just raw exposure. But the second part, it's not just this exposure, right? Not just the exposure of ideas, that is, but it's also important how these ideas are being discussed and deliberated. And I kind of touched on this already, but we really want our students to experience firsthand that constructive dialogue does require skills that need to be practiced, right? This kind of dialogue requires the courage to disagree with others, the ability to listen carefully to what it is the other side is saying, and then also the ability to factually establish and explain one's own position. And I think Professors West and George are experts in this craft. And so we hope that this event and others, of course, help our students see the benefits of deliberation and communication, and then want to be engaged with our program, because this is really what we're advocating for.
Great. And how has the program and its work been received by the wider campus community?
Sure, that's a great question. I would say, as with any new program, its development and also its longevity are really first and foremost going to depend on trust. And my colleagues and I have worked really hard to foster that trust starting last year. We spoke before faculty council. We held a series of roundtables with the dean of the college to listen to a diverse group of faculty. Our executive director, Kevin Marinelli, who I mentioned earlier, is also really committed to this trust building work. And he's making an effort to meet with department chairs and listen to their ideas and learn how we can best help facilitate the excellent work that many of them are already doing in this area of deliberation. And so I think we're laying a really nice groundwork. The feedback I've gotten this year and the feedback from our first year has been overwhelmingly positive. I always think in terms of gardening, because I love to garden, and there's a saying in gardening, which maybe you're familiar with, or some of the audience is, that in the first year when you plant something new, it sleeps, and then the next year it creeps, and then the third year it leaps. And not to say that I thought the first year that we were sleeping or this year we're just creeping along, but I really think the establishment of a program or anything new does take time. And I think we are laying a really good foundation. And much of this is in the framework of trust building. And I think our faculty are supportive of the program. They're seeing what it is that we're trying to do. And I look forward to working with our faculty in the future.
Well, that's good to hear. Are there any future plans to expand the program's work?
So I think we're already doing that. And that's, I guess, the creeping part that I just talked about above in my garden analogy. I think we're well on our way to expanding the program. We'll host more public events this year than we did last year. We already have 2 under our belt and a third one coming up here this fall semester. Our curricular programming is coming to fruition, and students, faculty, and the public seem to be paying attention. I think we have a lot to offer UNC and the public, and I look forward to engaging with a wide array of the people and the viewpoints that are present on our campus and the broader public as we move forward. I really think we're ahead of schedule and that our future is really bright as a program.
It's wonderful. Well, those are all my questions, Sarah. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. This is important work that's being done at UNC, and I'm sure our listeners will be very excited to hear about it.
Thank you so much for the time, Shannon. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm eager to keep the program going and help in any way that I can.